All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN for Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
Yeah.
I got it.
You know when you climb into bed with somebody and you're in a business relationship and you just they just know what they're doing. They're going to do the right things. That is how I feel about my partsy. Some of the things, I want you to listen to something, okay? I don't know if you guys recall this, but JP, cue it and play this.
Rashee Rice is back, Pacheco. I think this is at least a 7-point game for the Chiefs. I like it.
Did you hear my partsy? And let me say, it did come down to a Geppetto elf slipper in the end zone.
Wow.
That's right. Thank you.
That's
it doesn't matter. He made the right call. It doesn't matter.
It
and
does
I know
matter.
you
A
hate the replay.
That's
A toenail.
That's where I was going to go. If you're in the dressing room afterwards and Isaiah Likely takes his shoes off and his toenails are an inch too long, like you're going to lose it on him.
Yep.
Like that's what it is, because watching that right away, I'm like, they're going to call that back. They had great camera angles, like almost too good.
It was a Geppetto elf slipper.
But it was unbelievable because I'm like, he caught it and got in.
Yep.
But
He's out by a toe. I should have looked this up today, but Doogie, do me a favor. I'm sure you can find it. Find the shoe size of Isaiah Likely, because if he's a size 8, that we cover last night. If he's probably a size 10, he looks like he's got size 15 feet. He's got monster feet. He's got to find a way. You can't even criticize the guy. He was unbelievable. Likely was great last night.
Yeah.
I like the way Lamar Jackson applied the logic after the game. I choose to approach it the same way Lamar did. Did you hear him after, where he just goes?
I did not.
Yeah. We got the clip. We'll play it here.
Yeah.
Why don't I play it? All right, let me just play it.
Go ahead.
I can't do justice.
Let's
This is the biggest loser mentality, losing a game, losing a bet, but I love it and I appreciate it because I choose to see it the same way Lamar did post-game last night.
So, Lamar, your perspective on that on Zay's touchdown?
You said it, Jameson. I thought it was a touchdown. But I still think it's a touchdown.
Still thinks it's a touchdown. I love that. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to just say, I still think it's a touchdown. Actually, it's not, Lamar. It wasn't a touchdown. That's why you lost. That's why they went to replay.
That's where I do like, and Hayes, you've been harping on it for years. If that's like a discretion call from an umpire sideline guy, they're just like, touchdown. Mm-hmm. But by the rules. And my life coach today was like, they just got to find a way to make that a touchdown. And then I'm like, but you just have people losing it. You'll have the Chiefs saying, by the rule, not a touchdown.
Wow.
But when you're looking at that, you're like, that's a toenail, a Geppetto slipper across, and you're done.
Yeah, but I did have some people say to me today that they felt like the refs were on Kansas City.
The KC ref memes, too.
Dude, it's
there
crazy.
was a meme last night.
There was one kissing Mahomes.
Yes, the one where Mahomes is kissing the ref on the lip. I was dying laughing. I'm like, okay, was it that bad? Like, was it that egregious?
I thought it was brutal, but naturally I'm going to think that way because I was on the Ravens last night,
right?
And it didn't go my way. I thought the officiating was terrible last night, but there's a couple of things I will say. To circle back on what you said about the instant replay, you know where I stand on it. You know I hate it, but I hate the subjective calls. That is black or white. It's either you're in or you're out. You know, like that one, if you're going to throw that one out, then you might as well throw everything out because he was out of bounds.
Well, let me ask you this, Hayes. If you weren't a fan, you had no skin in that game last night, you were just an NFL fan, and like a guy was allowed to make a call just by his eyes, and he was allowed to eyeball it, and he was like, touchdown. But then it came out that the guy was actually out of bounds. Like, what would you have to say about that? Would you just say tough crap?
Well, yes, I guess if we never had the technology, if we never, dove into the world of review and all that kind of stuff, you'd have to just accept. Live, he looked at it, and you couldn't blame the ref for live saying, I think that was in. You know, like they had to break that down.
I told my trainer today, the only time you can do that is in 1980.
Right.
Where you're not going back and nobody has cameras and it's not outrage.
Exactly. You can't do it anymore. And that's the problem with the officiating is they find calls all the time. And I feel like there's got to be a balance here where you let some things go, because I have anxiety watching the NFL right now, because every big play, the first thing I think of is flag. Is it coming or is it not?
What was going on in the first? There was a flag in the first 5 Baltimore plays.
Well, illegal formation. That's the big thing,
Yeah.
right? They've implemented this new hyper focus on illegal formation. It sure looked like Kansas City had a bunch of them that didn't get flagged. There's the
they were
conspiracy
fine.
theory. Oh, they were perfect. They were totally prepared for illegal formation. But Baltimore wasn't. The most egregious example, though, and I know I sound like a loser here, in Kansas City, they've won 2 straight Super Bowls. They're the best team in the league. And they were really good last night. They deserved to win last night. But Steve Spagnuolo getting a timeout, he's not allowed to do that. Only the head coach has the power to call a timeout. The defensive coordinator, Spags is running down the field.
Yeah, he ran
they give him a timeout. Then he goes, sorry, my bad. They're like, no problem, Spags. No problem, man. That should have been a 15-yard penalty, a loss of a timeout. There should have been some punitive action taken against Kansas City, and instead it's don't worry about it, Spags. Love you,
the
pal.
problem with that
it's outrageous.
The problem with that is moving forward. And Noodles,
Yeah.
you've seen coaches lose their mind. I mean, Hayes, I'll include you, obviously. It happens in the future when a coach does that and it's not Spags and they get dinged for it and it's 15 yards. You will run on the field and fight the umpire.
Yes.
Because you'll be like, you want me to show you the tape of Spags doing it? What are you doing?
That's why you can't allow the precedent to be set like it was last night.
That's the trouble they're going to be in.
Well, it is. And it's tough because you're right. If the precedent is set, all you're going to do is, we saw it last week. You allowed it last week. Now, the NFL doesn't do, the NBA releases hey, made a mistake here, made a mistake. What if the NFL did that? I was thinking about that this morning. There would be too many mistakes, don't you think?
Well, I agree. I don't want that. I think it's so patronizing the NBA does that. It's meaningless. It's such a troll job. They do the 2-minute review. Oops, sorry, should have had one last night.
Yeah.
It's why are you telling me that now? I don't.
That just makes everyone look stupid.
It makes everyone look stupid. It's such a dumb play.
Yeah.
And you're right, though, Noodles. You have 22 mutants on the field every play. Monsters that are frothing at the mouth to move the chains or tackle, sack, do whatever they can. There is an infraction on literally every snap. Every snap. If you do the all 22 tape and look, you're like, that's a hold. That guy jumped too quick. This guy did that. You could probably find something almost in every snap. So it is a difficult sport to officiate, to be fair to them. But there's got to be some balance here. It can't be a ref show, because that's what it was at times last night. They were just way too involved in what was a good football game. But I think if you're the NFL, you're like, we got everything we wanted, right? Taylor Swift was there. It was a great ball game. Came down to the last play. A little bit of controversy. Everyone's buzzing today. That's the NFL in a nutshell.
Dream start. It's a dream start. They got Mahomes out there running around doing his thing. That guy's so good, man. What a treat watching that guy play.
He's so good.
Dude, he's so good. And it's not the great players in sports, they do all the standard stuff. An example is Raymond Bork. He would go in the corner, and if it had to be a quick up, that play would be done every single time.
Yeah.
But the improvisation and the special plays that he would do on a nightly basis, Mahomes is that just on steroids, where it's the standard play, 10-yard route, whatever, he makes it, but then he's got to improvise and make something happen. I mean, I'm not going to get into the Tom Brady GOAT, but can anybody make something happen out of nothing better than that guy?
Scary.
It's insane.
It's scary how good he is.
Yeah, the one thing I notice about top players in any sport is their ability to, in practice, guys, I've played with guys who were the best practice players of all time. But you get them in a game, you get some physicality around them, you get some pressure on them, and they just blend in. You're right. The top players, Mahomes, looks like he's trying stuff in a game. He's trying stuff in a game where other guys are I don't have the confidence to even think about trying that, where he's like, I'll do it because I can probably execute it. And I'm good enough to, if it doesn't work, I'll make it up the next play. These guys just have that level where it's, regardless of the sport, they're playing at a different level, and they try things where the average player wouldn't even think to try that. Mahomes is just at that other level.
He's at a completely different level. And you talk about reviewing the tape, and his teammates had examples of this last night. There were drops last night. The Kansas City probably should have had 35, 40 points, 42 points plus. Like, he laid the ball out a few times where guys had wide open, basically take it to the house moments, and they dropped the ball. And that's what's amazing is this guy continues to win because he's the best. He continues to put up staggering statistics, and he looks so comfortable. He looks so calm. He's just in his prime right now. He's in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's not 35 years old. It's terrifying what he's doing and how he operates. And there are guys on his team that are screwing it up for him in ways where it could be even more egregious, the gap between himself and everyone else. And I think if you're any of the other 31 teams, and you don't want to overreact too much, but I think you can in this case because of the team we're talking about. 2-time Super Bowl champ Kansas City Chiefs. They are worthy of appropriate reaction, being extreme, because they are extreme. Who they are and what they do and how they operate. If you're watching that last night, that Chiefs defense looked unbelievable. Chris Jones,
that
is
95
he's
a menace.
Menace. He is a menace. And Steve Spagnuolo's got that team absolutely dialed in on the defensive side of the ball. But it's not just that. Rashee Rice was unreal. That Xavier Worthy he's a cheat code. That's one game. The guy's got 2 touchdowns. He had the fastest 40 time in the history of the combine. And the other 31 teams said, go ahead, Andy Reid, you take him. You have him, and you figure out how it's going to work.
How does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the Bills traded the pick. The Bills, I believe, had the pick and traded the pick to Kansas City. Kansas City moved up and took them. And now you know that's going to come back to bite them. But that's what's terrifying is their defense looked that good. Their weapons looked that good. I thought Pacheco was great last night. And then they got Mahomes and Reed. Like, Travis Kelce's out there in semi-retirement during the regular season. He's just cruising around.
We got to get into that haircut. We got to get into. He looks like that haircut again. I shouldn't be talking with my salad, but I don't. What the hell happened there?
He's got a weird vibe, but honestly, I think he's retired in the regular season, and he'll show up in the playoffs like he did last year. Playoffs, he was unbelievable.
What was his stat line last night?
Let me find it. He had a couple of big catches.
Yeah, like one downfield good.
But there was a large stretch where I'm like, is that guy even wheeling around out there?
He had 3 receptions for 34 yards. He was out there,
he was
man.
Fine.
He was
just fine. Dancing around before the game, but I couldn't stop looking at his salad. Like he got rid of the sideburn, but it's like a. You know Larry Curly and Moe? Larry's hair is just like a bowl cut. That's what it was.
Somebody took a picture of his salad in his whole look, and they posted it up, and they're like, it looks like this guy tried to brand a new type of beer that tastes like trash, like an IPA. Like some kind of hipster or something. And he made a beer that tastes like garbage.
Yeah. Honestly,
he's vibing now. He's got a different vibe, dude.
He does, and listen, his resume has already been written. Yeah. He is who he is, and he's going to have big games throughout the regular season. But there's a part of me that thinks there's almost an agreement there. Like, let me get a few catches. If you need something in the end zone, I'll be there. I'm going to block for you. But the regular season, I'm kind of just cruising here.
Yeah.
But I'll be ready come the playoffs.
Hayes, let me ask you something about Baltimore. You talked about Chris Jones and him being a menace. He's just he's a monster with athletic ability, and it's not much he can do. I mean, Chris Collinsworth was saying, he's like, there's 2 guys there, and they can't do anything against him. But as far as the Baltimore side, their O-line, that was talked about last night as being somewhat of a weakness, correct?
That is a concern for them.
Why on earth, when you have the golden nugget and you bring in Henry, you got Lamar back there, how could you enter a season where you're trying to win and that be a weakness of all things?
Yeah.
I can't.
Good question, man.
Yeah, how could you possibly, as management, to think that we want to get the ultimate goal and have an O-line as a weakness? That's insane when you have a golden nugget back there.
Well, I think it's a scenario here where I guess it's difficult to patch and play. You lose guys due to injury, due to money reasons, due to veteran status. The draft doesn't hit. I don't have really.
I just
an
found it
explanation
crazy.
for you.
I just found it crazy watching it. Like,
Yeah.
you got to protect that guy. How many years have we seen Brady, like, so much time back there, and Mahomes just to do the things that they want, because that's the main priority, is keeping that guy safe. And it's like, I don't know how you could do that.
Well, it's something they're going to have to figure out. And I don't want to overreact to a loss by Baltimore last night. Like, I think they're still a really good team. I think they'll be a competitive team. I don't think that last night is going to matter in the end. Again, they lost by a toe, you know, in the end. They had and Lamar, you know, he had a couple of bad throws prior to that last one, right? Like, Zay Flowers was wide open. The first down when they moved the chains likely was open in the corner, and he missed them. So it really should not have come down to that last throw to Likely, where Lamar should have gotten that job done. But the offensive line is always very difficult for people to evaluate what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, and how cohesive it is. But that's why football junkies will tell you. I mean, Luke's coming up later. He'll be the first one to say it. Like, you have to have your line dialed in. You know, you focus so much on the quarterback, so much on the coach. But if you don't have an offensive line, if you don't have a defensive line that can break through the line of scrimmage, that's football, man. Often it's a game of inches, and the inches are generally determined at the line of scrimmage. So, Baltimore's got to figure that out. But it's one game. You know, it's one game on the road in Kansas City. So they didn't get blown out last night. I think the Ravens are going to be fine by the end of the year.
Best part about it is there's another one tonight. Like,
you see what's going on here. You see the Packers are staying in Rio de Janeiro for some reason, and the game's in Sao Paulo tonight.
Yeah,
like,
but
who set this up?
That group chat has got some language and some chirping in there. I love it, though. I'm like last night.
I just think they're slobs, and their journey started last night. They're slobs.
No, it didn't start last night.
Al's brother's it's why we start our journey today, Partsy. No, we started your journey for you last night.
Well, yeah. I mean, we handed you a layup last night. We won the coin flip. Probably should have taken the Chiefs. It does suck when the first game you're chasing it immediately. Like, we're right back in a position where Hayes and Bro is chasing it starting tonight. And there's pressure on us because this was the game we decided to pick. But, yeah, the group chat was on fire last night, on fire today, on fire again tonight. And I love that there's another game. I feel like this is something they will establish in the future. I don't think they want to play on Friday nights because it messes with, the American way of football, high school on Friday, college on Saturday, NFL on Sunday. But I think you can sneak one in opening week. Can't you? Like, can't you sneak in
Dude, you've
opening
said it before.
week?
They do whatever. They're doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
If they want to wipe out college football, man, they'll wipe it out.
If they wanted to, they could.
Yeah.
I mean, college football is pretty big. Like, it's number 2 down there. The NFL's number 1, but
the NFL decided college football, you're now on Wednesday nights. That's when it is.
it could be.
That's the plain truth.
Yeah, it could be. But I like the idea of opening weekend Thursday night, Friday night.
Yeah,
and
good.
They're down in Brazil. You see, Twitter's been banned down there. So I was reading a story this afternoon.
Banned how?
It's just banned. I guess the president of Brazil is like hates Elon Musk or something. And
he refused to it's something like he refused to take 10 accounts offline. Like it's literally an argument. So they were like, to hell with it. You're all gone. Type of thing. Like he wouldn't, his free speech thing is like, I'm not suspending any of them. And that's so it's banned. It's banned in Brazil.
It's banned. So I saw Eagles reporters anyway, they are having their wives tweet on their behalf.
Oh, kind of live tweet type of thing.
Yes.
Well, what are you talking about? Who's monitoring that?
What I think is happening
when you get into Brazil, it stops working.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Like, you go to China, you can't just walk in there and start doing it. Like, the country controls what is allowed, which apps are allowed, which. That happens around the world.
Why do you think people are arguing
Absolutely.
about freedom of speech and that? Like, they're saying you don't want to be like this country, you don't want to be like this country, because Brazil's. It's happening right now with X, anyways. So.
Yeah, with the one again. I think that's an Elon Musk thing, but I don't know the depth of it really. But again, Eagles beat writers that are down there are, I guess, going to text back. Like, hey, tweet this out, fumble going the other way, and or whatever it is. I don't know how you live tweet via text to a third party, but I guess we're going to experience that tonight.
Wonder if you could YouTube live, like FaceTime, somebody or something. Like, I'm sure they're going to get the information out, and we'll be watching it.
Right.
And everybody here on Twitter is going to have an opinion. So I think it'll be exciting. It should be a good game tonight, too.
Do you guys not think that
game.
would have almost been like a deal breaker? Like, isn't Twitter a powerful enough engine where once they found out no Twitter, did they
it's
contemplate
been a
not
recent
going?
development, but
Yeah,
not for the
that's
NFL. I mean, this would have been planned for years that they were going. And the NFL wants to be in all these different countries because of the money.
Yeah.
They don't care about Twitter. They don't care about anyone else. They care about themselves. And, a night like tonight, I think it does clarify how far away, like, Canada is from the NFL radar, which is kind of wild considering how closely associated we are with the NFL, with Buffalo right down the road from Toronto, Seattle right down the road from Vancouver. There's so many Canadians that love the NFL, and the NFL is very, very popular up here. Yet they're going to London, they're going to Germany, they're going to Brazil, they've been to Mexico. And I can't recall the last time I heard even a whisper of them playing back in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal or anywhere. And
it's kind of sad, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, there's a Canadian Football League element to all this, which the NFL has always said, we want to protect that, and there's the Buffalo angle that they want to protect, and I think they also take advantage of the fact, and I don't think it's an unwise business strategy, that Canada's already in hook, line, and sinker. They don't have to play games up here to get people jacked up for the NFL. The NFL does massive numbers up here. There's a massive following. You got to get to Germany and play there so they can be like, all right, what's this all about? Where are we going with this? You got to get to England. Maybe you got to get to Brazil. They're trying to attack soccer-hungry countries, where up here football is already massively popular. But they're going to Brazil before they're coming up to Toronto again. And I know they've been through here. But that was very specific to the Bills. It wasn't like a neutral site, international series, massive game. This was a Bills home game up here.
And it wasn't sold out, right? Like, didn't they have some struggles there with?
They had struggles, but they also tried to gouge people so horribly.
Yeah, it was like $400 a ticket or something. Wasn't it $350?
Yes, and that's 15 years ago. More than that. It was
insane.
Insane what they were asking for. The Bills were brutal at that point. The players didn't sell it properly. There was a lot of things that I think went against Toronto and didn't set up Toronto well to put on a good face and a good show. But ever since that came to an end, and basically since Terry Pecula bought the team, it's just that's it. Toronto's not in the swing anymore. All right, Dan Patrick coming up. DP will join us just after 5. We'll ask him that. If the NFL wanted to take over Saturday and knock college football somewhere else, do you think they could achieve that?
Now that I think about it, I kind of think I know what he's going to say. As much as the NFL is the king daddy topper, like college ball, man, like that's
huge.
Religion. That's religion down there.
Especially in the smaller.
That's where the party stops. Like it's religion.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
And in New York, it's one thing. Chicago, LA, you go to Nebraska, you go to Carolina or something like that, it's a different world. All right, so DP coming up. The Jays back in action in Atlanta tonight. Steve Phillips will join us. We'll get into our conversation from a day or two ago about, what's going to happen with the Jays. And he's written a story about how important it is to get Vladdy signed and signed quickly, because Vladdy continues to absolutely torch Major League Baseball in the second half. So we're going to do a number of things with Steve. We got Luke and Al's brother coming up with picks tonight, picks for Sunday as well. We got a 3-pack of games on Sunday. We can't wait. And Dear Hazy B back in the swing of things. Dear Hazy B coming up at 6:30. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Here in a moment, Jays Braves tonight. Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves, always a connection to Toronto. Always a connection. And Alex was here when they brought in Vladdy. Vladdy getting him signed when he was 16. That was pretty tidy work by Alex Anthopoulos. And, the Braves they're currently tied with the Mets. They're both 76 and 64. They're chasing the Phillies. The Phillies are going to win the NL East for sure.
Dan, the Braves are good, though, every year.
Every year.
I know they got a stacked team, but, wasn't one of their key guys out all year too?
They've had injuries, a ton of injuries, and they're in a scenario here where they're chasing a wild card spot.
Yeah, but it was Acuna, I think,
Yeah,
that
it
had
is.
like a big-time injury at the beginning of the season. It's like they still do it.
Yep. They still find a way to plug away, and just that's the sign of such a well-run team and just a quality team when you can lose a monster in
That's
your lineup.
right, and they don't blink.
Yep, because they don't allow it to be an excuse. That's really the mentality of the best teams, the best. Then sure, there are some guys that are going to go down in some sports where you can't recover. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes gets injured, Kansas City's in big trouble. But injuries happen, and you got to plug and play, and you need guys that are going to step in and be able to find a way to work. And a lot of that's based on the culture of your team, the coaching, the atmosphere, the leadership. A lot of things have to go into that.
One I always go to, Hayes, is Peter Forsberg out of the playoffs. Colorado won a cup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joe Sakic said it's Joe Sakic time. Won the Stanley Cup. Everyone was like, oh, no, Forsberg. They're screwed. Well, can you imagine all these teams that put all their eggs in a bunch of guys' baskets and one of them, like, key guy goes down? They're kind of screwed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, remember that injury? Wasn't it a ruptured spleen or something? Like it was something
bad
crazy.
One.
Yeah, it was awful, but they found a way. They had depth, though. That team was
that's back in the day where you could have a lot more depth than you do today.
I think I've told you guys this. I remember playing for the Minnesota Wild, sitting on the bench beside a guy named Sean O'Donnell, and we were playing Colorado, and their power play was on the ice right in front of us, and they had $45 million on the ice. And, like, Odie just looked at me. He goes, look at this. It's ridiculous. Because Waugh was in net, and you had Blake and Bork, and then it was Forsberg, Sakic, and, like, Hayduke or something. Mm-hmm. Our payroll was $11.5 million. And they were 44 just on the ice on the power play. Like, it was ridiculous.
Your payroll was 11.5?
After the deadline, because they traded Scott Pellerin away. They traded a couple of guys away. Like, I think I was one of the higher, which was – that's kind of sad. I was kind of, north of $1 million, and I was one of the higher paid guys. And I think our payroll was like $11.5 million or something.
Wow.
It was something ridiculous. Yeah,
yeah,
it was not
that's
good.
like an East Coast.
Well, yeah, it was funny. Like, anyways, that the payroll was like $45 million.
Yeah,
on the ice,
on the ice.
Us.
And there's probably a lot on the bench too, right?
Exactly.
That probably made up another
the
30 or 40 million.
And Adam Foote and all of those guys, right?
So but you're right, man. That's when you could buy depth, or a lot of it was just drafted and developed. I'm pretty sure when Forsberg went down, I think Chris Drury stepped up. Yeah. It's a pretty good second line center, I would say. Like Chris Drury ready. That's not a bad fulfillment within your lineup. But yeah, Jays are down in Atlanta tonight. And again, the Braves are fighting it. They're fighting the Braves. They're fighting the Mets, naturally, in the NL East to see who might get into the playoffs, that last wild card spot in the NL. Here's our TSN MLB insider. Here's Steve Phillips. How do you see that one playing out, Steve? You got money on Atlanta or your Mets?
Boy, I tell you what, the Mets, by the way, have the best record in baseball since May 30th. They're on a 104-win pace in the last 81 games. The Mets are. This is not just a hot team. This is a team that's played extremely well. They've been the best team in baseball since May 30th. And the Braves, they've got the pitching still. And look, the Braves right now are set up, if they make the playoffs, with Sale in Game 1, with Reynaldo Lopez in Game 2, with Max Fried in Game 3, and Spencer Schwellenbach in Game 4. Like, their four starters are as good as any team going into the postseason, but they have to get there, and their offense has just completely disappeared on them. Now, they've had injuries, obviously. They're hoping to get Albies back at some point. Riley probably won't be back. Austin Riley at third base won't be back probably if they make the playoffs. And I got to tell you, the Mets sure feel like that storybook team this year, the way they're playing and what they've overcome, and the poor start to the season. Lindor, you can make a case for Lindor for the National League MVP. Now, everybody, 50-50 gets exciting for people with Ohtani, but Lindor's going to be 35-35 and be an everyday Gold Glove shortstop, where he's already had, I think, 560 chances in the field this year, and Ohtani's had none. And so if you look at Fangraphs WAR, that wins above replacement, Lindor leads the National League in that, ahead of Ohtani. And it's the other war, baseball reference war, that Ohtani has the edge over Lindor. So you can make a case Lindor is the MVP of the National League the way he's performed. And he's playing out of his mind right now, as are the entire Mets lineup.
Steve, you touched on the Braves, and a lot of pro sports, baseball included, I'm sure you would agree, is asset management. And you look at the asset of Alex Anthopoulos and him being here in Toronto. I mean, looking back on that, would you say that's a mistake, letting him walk or forcing him out of the organization, and looking at what he's been able to do? And I know you can't project that, but it's been pretty damn successful, hasn't it?
He has. Now, I will tell you that Alex will tell you that when he left Toronto and went to Los Angeles and he worked as an assistant under Andrew Friedman, that really advanced his game as an executive as well. And so in some ways, what was probably very disheartening for him and a sad day when he decided to walk away from the Blue Jays, obviously being from Toronto area, and that was very painful for him. It actually turned into a gift, that out of that came a furthering of his education to broaden the way that he looked at things, which he's now applying in Atlanta. And, he inherited a really, really healthy organization. He replaced John Capolello, who got suspended because they did some things that a lot of teams were doing in the international market, but he didn't handle it the right way with the commissioner's office. And he's since been reinstated. But Alex, has really taken that franchise to a whole nother level. And so if he stayed in Toronto, who knows if he would be the executive he is today, because he really has grown since he did leave Toronto.
I got a lot of questions for you, Steve. It's been a while since I've talked to you. And I want to get to the Shapiro comments where he said, I think the organization did the right thing. They had no choice. The team wasn't good. They blew it up. But to come out and say they believe they can put a championship caliber team together next year, are those reasonable comments? They seem quite insane to me to think that this team is going to compete. There is some nice pieces there, but there just seems to be a lot of work that would need to be done for that team to even come close to be competing for a championship. Is that too much of an unrealistic comment for the fan base to come out with that?
I don't think it is. I think I think that there's a pathway for them back to the playoffs for sure. And
playoffs are one thing, but being a championship level team is another. Yeah.
Well, if they were a playoff team right now, going into October, and they had Gosman, Bassett, and Barrios, and now Bowden Francis, their starting rotation would be better than the Yankees, better than the Orioles, better than the Guardians, better than the Royals. And so you look at that and think, okay, so they've got to fix their offense. Now, they're getting some answers in some of the young players up here right now, but I could see them keeping an open mind about what you do this offseason, trading for Brandon Lau, second baseman from Tampa Bay, who's on, going to be priced out of the Tampa Bay market. They do these backloaded deals, and at some point the backloaded money comes up and they trade them. It's what they did with Glasnow. It's what they've done with other players, or Rosarena and others, and guys like that. So I can see Brandon Lau. You go out and sign Anthony Santander to play in the outfield, and now you've got switch hitting power bat in the outfield. You could trade Varsho and turn him into a different asset of some sort, which I would. I would move him. I think that he's a great defender, but I think his bat stops the lineup too much. And he's been okay this year, but I think he can do better and I'd give up a little defense to improve the offense. And so I can make a few moves that aren't going to break the bank and put a lineup together that would work for this team. And you're going to have Bichette bounce back. And look, he had 4 good years before he got hurt, and underperformed a little bit. So you got him hungry for a free agent year, so the motivation being there. So I can, they're going to have to, figure out the bullpen. But bullpens are the thing that you can make mistakes on and think you've got a good one from one year to the next, and it falls apart like what it did for the Jays. I mean, think about it. Swanson and Romano and Meza were the 3 big guys, and Jimmy Garcia at the end of the game. And this year, Jordan Romano's hurt. Meza was designated for assignment, and Swanson went to AAA. So I think there's a pathway to get back, because I look at the American League right now. Nobody's that much better than everybody else in the American League. They all have a major flaw. The only team really that's going to be playoff bound that doesn't have any major component where there's a weakness is the Phillies. Philly has good starting pitching, good bullpen, good offense, good defense, good base running and experience, and a great fan base. They're the one team that I think is the most predictable of advancing in the playoffs.
So, Steve, what you're saying is you don't see a sweeping change even at the managerial level, because I know it's quite noisy here in the market as to, when things don't go well for a fan base and a team, they want changes. And it sounds like, you're saying with a couple of changes here, a couple moves in the offseason, you don't think that Shapiro will maybe drop the hammer, throughout the organization.
Right. So, yeah, I think that the way Mark answered the questions, when he did the press conference previously, I came out of it hearing, presidents speak that Ross Atkins is back and John Schneider's back. That's what I heard. Now, again, it was about 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and maybe things can change between then and the end of the year. But I don't get the sense from the way he answered the questions, where he said, well, I'd like to wait the end of the year for evaluations, but we're going to do this, and Ross is planning this. And, I mean, if he's in the planning mode for it and he made the deals at the deadline, he's likely going to be the executive moving forward next year, too. And I get the sense that John Schneider is secure in his position. And, that's the one spot. Again, it's talk about people losing jobs. It's always horrible. Like, I can't stand doing it, but it's part of what we have to do. And I thought to salvage this year, I would have taken a shot at making a managerial change. The Mariners did. Now, it hasn't given them the result that they wanted, and they probably waited a little bit too long, too, because they went from having a 10-game lead over the Astros and 24 days later losing, the 10-game advantage, and the quickest turnaround ever in a playoff race. And so they let Scott Service go. And I would just report today that Jerry Dipoto is going to keep his job as president for the Seattle Mariners and get another year. And I think there were a lot of people there that were similar. Offense fell apart, didn't produce, big expectations, didn't get it done. Same stories in Toronto, and Jerry Dipoto is coming back in Seattle as well.
Steve, at the beginning of the season, Vladdy it was miserable for him and Bo, but what a turnaround. I mean, where does this leave him? I don't know what his desires are, but they've been doing the qualifying offer thing, and where does that leave his contract, and what do you think? How does the organization proceed with what he's done this year?
Yeah, well, I think that quite honestly, I think his good year is the best chance for a deal to get done, because prior to it, he wanted to be paid like a player that would have a year like this, even though he hadn't had one in the last couple of years. And the team was like, I can't pay you like the superstar because you've underperformed that level.
So you wouldn't pay him like a superstar after what he's done this year?
No, I would. I will now. I understood why they couldn't. There was no starting point before because the gap was too big. He wanted to be paid like the superstar, and the team was like, I can't pay you like that because you're not playing like that. But now that he did, I think now the team can look at it and I think comfortably say he's going to be a superstar. He's gotten back on track again. And you can make a case this season is every bit as good as his 2021, where he was second in the MVP. Some of the home runs he had that year are doubles this year. 40 doubles and 28 homers versus 48 homers and 20 doubles back then. So I actually wrote about it on the website today, on .ca today, that the agent is going to want a 13-year contract. He's going to play at the age of 26 next year. And so they'll want a 13-year contract. The team would prefer to do 10, which would take them through 2035. And that there will have to be some middle ground. It'll be more than 10 years. If they offer less than 10 years, it's a non-starter. Like the agent will forget it. He'll scoff at it. Even if you offer him 10, he may scoff, but he'll engage in conversation. But I think it's 12 years, $328 million, something like that, $27 million a year. So Freddie Freeman makes $27 million a year. And he got the deal a couple of years ago, but he's a better player than Guerrero. So I would offer initially 10 years, $27 million a year, $270 million, and then negotiate from there. And ideally, what I would like to do is to just add years to my 10 and keep it at the 27. But I think anything less than 10 years and putting it at 27, it's a really good faith offer that I'm saying you're not Freddie Freeman, but I'm going to pay you like Freddie Freeman because it's a couple years old. I'm separating you from Matt Olson, who's played at $22 million a year for Atlanta. and I'm saying you're closer to Freeman, and I'm going to pay you the big bucks. And I think there's a chance to work out a deal there, and I think they should do it. I think they have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to end up happening here. And I think, when you consider where ownership comes into play, who else they might be trying to get, them trying to be competitive next year, the marketing component, there's so many different layers to it. Vladdy's got a lot going for him right now. Jay's in Atlanta this weekend. It'll be a fun one. Enjoy that, Steve. Enjoy the weekend. We'll do it again next week.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me. Always appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
You too. Steve Phillips, our TSN Baseball Insider. It's going to be a lot of money, a lot of term, a lot of money, a lot of term. But, I got to give credit to Vladdy Jr. I mean, the guy's numbers, his stat line has been unbelievable the last few months. And the previous couple of years, he was good. He wasn't great, but he was good. He wasn't awful. He was just a good ball player that played every single day. And he loves being a Blue Jay. He wants to stay in Toronto. That goes a long way with the fan base, I'm sure with ownership. And they had a bad swing and miss last year. Like they swung big, swung for the fences for Ohtani, and it didn't go their way. If Bo's going to leave too, that's another part of it. Like, you better have someone that's going to stick around, someone that's going to represent some sort of hope or someone that people are familiar with, and that's what Vladdy is. He's the man in Toronto. When you talk Blue Jays, he's the man, and if he sticks around for another 10 years, 12 years, he may hold the title as the greatest Blue Jay ever. I mean, that will be within range for him to achieve that, which is pretty cool.
I mean, Steve's saying that 27, so he's going to want 30, right? Like, he's probably going to be looking at 30 or north of 30. Mm-hmm. That is a $300 million contract. What if he ends up going back down to where he was the last couple of years? Is that?
I think his starting point, guys, is I think the starting point is way higher than that. If the dude in LA got $700 million.
Yeah, but he's not Ohtani.
Dude, I get it, but he's going to say Ohtani's not double the player I am, which I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Guy was a pitcher at the time, too.
I know, but he's going to say, look, he's 7, I'm 5. You know what I mean? He's not going to say that guy's 7, I'm 3.
Right. He'll come in higher. And I think Steve was saying that. Like, the Jays will come in 10 years, 270, and his agent will hang up the phone. Or his agent will come back and say, actually, 13, 425, or whatever. And then they'll probably meet in the middle. Probably be 11-year deal, 12-year deal, and he'll make, I'll bet you, $30 million a year. Like, the Devers deal is one that's being used a lot. They play a different position, but they're both studs at the plate. They're both around the same age. Devers signed 10 years, $313 million. He's making 31.5 a year, give or take. And I would guess Vladdy's agent will say, because this is going to kick in after this season, we want 33 a year on average. If it's a 10-year deal, it's got to be 330. And that'll be up to the Jays to decide whether or not that's going to work for them, or both parties for that matter. But the Jays could use some positive news, and that would be positive news. Like the idea of Vladdy Jr. being a Blue Jay for life, that would go a long way, I think, for a lot of Blue Jay fans. All right, we got Dan Patrick in about 20 minutes. Dear Hazy B coming up later this afternoon. Luke Wilson, Al's brother, more picks still to come as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Addicted to betrayal, but you're
all right, Dan Patrick coming up in about 10 minutes on the Chiefs winning last night. Packers, Eagles tonight in Brazil. You can, of course, watch that on TSN, hear it on TSN. It was a great night last night. You can see that Pepsi commercial with those 4 NFL players. Like Kelce was in there.
Yeah. They looked like Gladiator or whatever.
Yeah, it was for Gladiator 2, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were making a Gladiator 2. But that was like a Super Bowl ad for opening night. It must have cost a fortune. It was
How much do you think they got for that?
The players?
Tons, yeah.
Oh, they would have been paid a
$1,000,000
fortune.
each.
Yeah, for a fortune to be in that. But it was a cool spot, and like the original Gladiator is such a good movie.
Is that with Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe.
Yeah, I love
such
that movie.
a good movie. Joaquin Phoenix is such a weasel in that movie.
Weasel, as weaselly as you can get in a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst.
Makes you like hate his guts. Every time you see him, you're like, I just can't do it. But
he's
that's
such a
acting.
great actor.
Yeah, I know. That's acting. Where it's like he makes you hate his guts.
Yeah.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Yeah. How do you replicate that, man? How do you?
I don't
What is
know.
Gladiator 2 possibly
Do
going
you
to bring?
think
I don't know.
Do you think 2 has anything? It's probably a prequel, right? It would have to be, right? Or it's
I don't
not-
know. I mean, is it about? Like,
We
I
all
don't
know
think
what
Russell.
happened to him at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know if Russell Crowe's in it though. I don't know if it's about Maximus Decimus Meridius or whatever his name was.
I don't know.
Yeah, what is that? Derek Henry? I can't tell who else was in there. I picked up on Kelce, and I'm like, these guys are rock stars out there. Like, it's a cool commercial up there. There's Josh Allen. Anyway, that felt like a big night. Like it felt like a
was.
big night on TV last night, and I'm sure the ratings were out of this world.
Big night tonight for you and your guy.
It is Jordan Love. The race for the MVP.
No, I was talking
starts
about
tonight.
the other guy, Al's
You're talking
brother.
about Al's brother and us being on the clock.
Any
for the pick
convos
tonight.
today? Any convos?
Yeah, we went back and forth, and we're in lockstep, man. Al's brother and I, we are seeing things very clearly right now.
Tremendous
We're in business,
information.
and we feel very good. And it's like a best of 7 series. You're not down until you lose at home. Right, you guys made a good pick last night. We're on the clock with our pick tonight. We'll get that just after 6 o'clock. Al's brother and Luke Wilson coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.